Sausage.
Hello, and welcome to another episode of First, the show where I, Mark Krishnez, gives you my first impressions on a game. And this here episode is all about Dawn of the Monsters, a kaiju-themed beat-em-up where you take on the role of either a giant mechanized suit, humanized suit, or a kaiju, and you take on other kaiju, and you beat the living shit out of them. And it's a good time. It really does a great job of taking that thematic element, the kaiju, the giant monster stuff, and portraying it in a way that feels very in line with those types of stories and other forms of media. It does a great job with that. The music is pretty good at eliciting those emotions. So every time a battle starts, you'll hear music that makes you feel like you're watching a big monster movie, a kaiju movie. So that's all good, and it's got a great look to it. It's got a great style and overall aesthetic, and it is just a good time. The combat's pretty satisfying. It's on the easy side in my time with it, my 2 hours, and there's a fair amount of content in there. It probably took me an hour and a half to get through the first area, not counting, or probably counting a little bit of time for research and development and upgrades and whatnot, because there is an upgrade element. It's very minor, but you can get permanent upgrades for your health and rage. Rage is like your power-up meter so that you can do extra superpower attacks. And then you also have augments, which you can equip 3 of them on any of your characters, which give you certain types of abilities, like getting double health when you execute an enemy, or getting faster speed for 10 seconds after doing a successful dodge and stuff like that. And you can sell extra augments you get, because you'll get 2 at the end of each level. These will bring in money, and this is the best way to get money, which you then can use for permanent upgrades as well as cosmetics for your characters, because you only get 3,000 for completing a level, but you can get a lot of bank. I realized this, or remembered I could do this, after playing for a little bit, and ended up getting like $46,000, which was I felt so rich. But in addition to the research and development aspect, you have your basic tidbit section, and you get some story in the chat section. It has its own little story section, so you can get chat and story that you don't need to engage with if you don't want to. If you don't care about the story, you don't have to engage with that. But the story is solid. It's surprisingly decent, more so because it's all voice acted, and the voice acting is pretty damn good. It's pretty high quality voice acting. I wish I cared more about it, or that it was maybe a bit more original or had more personality. It's just a basic ass kaiju type story with basic ass characters who don't have much personality, or not that unique or that special, and there's no type of interaction or choices ever within the story. So it's very much so just, hey, here's a kaiju story. It's well done and well voice acted, but I mean, nothing particularly special. But I do like the fact that you don't have to engage with the majority of it. And of course, the parts that you do have to go through, you can just skip those pretty easily. I wish there was an option to auto scroll through them instead of having to press A every time somebody finishes talking and then I want to get to the next line, because I don't want to keep pressing A. I just want to be there and be listening to these people talk about their kaiju problems. But the gameplay, which is the most important thing, I hinted at, or I already said, it's pretty good. It's not the most complicated beat 'em up. You've got your basic light attack, heavy attack, a dash attack. You can dodge out of the way of attacks or block them. You can parry, but parrying seems a little bit iffy, so I opted for dodging most of the time. You have your special attacks, which you do by holding the left trigger and then pressing one of the face buttons. You unlock more as you play more, which is a little bit annoying. I don't like the fact that they lock abilities on the controller that should just be there. It's like, oh, now when you hold the Y button and then press it again, you can do this type of attack, and you get this after completing the first area or whatever. And I'm like, don't lock controls. I don't like that. Don't do that. That's really annoying, especially in a game like this, a beat 'em up. Just give me all the controls. Give me all the abilities right off the bat. This is the thing. If you're gonna lock it behind some kind of leveling system so that I can see it there and I know it's coming and I can choose to go down that path and unlock it myself, instead of it just being like, oh, there's some new stuff that I can do now that I never even would have thought I could do, but now I can do it. All right, that's great. It's just a little weird to me. I'd rather just have a traditional leveling system where you unlock stuff as opposed to just, we didn't give you this until now because why not? I'm like, all right, cool. But the combat is satisfying. It feels good. You got a nice bit of weight to your attacks. The walking animation is a little bit weird. You have 4 playable characters. I don't know if that sounded like playable, but I'm going to say playable again because I feel like that sounded like a bunch of garbled mess coming out of my mouth. But you have 4 playable characters, 2 kaiju and 2 humanoid robot type things, and they vary in the way they feel. Some are more powerful but sluggish to move around, and some are faster but maybe weaker. I opted for the Ag, I think was his name, the main dude, the seasoned vet, because I liked his look, I liked his idle stance, and he was easily the most agile and fun to play as for me. But if you like a more powerful thing, then probably the kaiju would work better for you. I really like the super special attacks. So when you do your basic special attacks by holding the left trigger and one of the face buttons, you will build up this meter for your super powered attack. And when that builds up, you push both the left and right trigger in. And I'm playing on Xbox, so these controls will be different depending on what system you're playing on. But when you push in both of the triggers on Xbox, then you initiate your super power attack, and it is very cinematic and just super badass. It's a very cool game, especially if you're like me and you enjoy all the kaiju stuff. Again, it is on the easy side. I never once worried about dying. In most cases, your attack will cancel an enemy's attack, which is both nice, but then makes it a little bit easy if you're not taking on a whole bunch of enemies at once. The ranged enemies are the ones that are the most problematic because they're attacking from a range, so you have to get rid of those pretty quickly, and you'll get more powerful ones. The boss fights are easy as well, so that is my one concern. There's no difficulty option, and if you want challenge in your game, you might be bummed by it or be a little bit disappointed. But if you just want a good solid beat 'em up that feels good to play, has a lot of style, the style is off the charts and it's so good. I love it. It's something that I think really helps in this genre where it is very simplistic. Beat 'em ups are not dime a dozen, but they're all pretty much the same. There's only so much you can do if you're not trying to do something super creative or interesting with the combat. If you're not going that route, then you need to have some kind of visual flair going on, and this game is full of that. And being that you are these giant robots or kaiju fighting one another, you're doing it at a much larger scale. So instead of being in a village or whatever, you're fighting across cities. They are abandoned. Don't worry, you're not killing anyone. And if there are people there in a building or whatever, then your objective is to protect that building. But in most cases, these are all abandoned cities. So you are walking and fighting through these cities, destroying buildings, picking up bigger ones, and smashing kaiju in the face with them. And it all feels really good. The problem, though, with the environment stuff is that I've only played, again, the first entire area and then a few levels of the second area. But across all of those levels, they kind of just all look the same because you are in these city places, and it's just like, okay, well, they're not going to put you in a place that doesn't have skyscrapers and things you can pick up and use to smash other monsters. So they're all going to be relatively similar. You might have variations in the color because it might be at dusk one level, then dawn the next one, and so on. And in the second area, there's a bit more green in it because it's in Brazil, I believe. But overall, the environments just kind of all look relatively the same. And that lack of variety is probably the weakest part of the game. But other than that, I really had a good time with it. It has local co-op for one other player, so you can play with a friend or your kid. It is family friendly in the sense that there isn't a lot of blood and you are just fighting monsters, so I think it would be a good game to play with the young ones, and they'd probably really like the aesthetic and the art style because it does have a very striking look, and it's fun beating up monsters, right? It's fun beating up monsters. Instead of beating up other people, you're just like, hey, let's go beat up these giant turtles and things that look like other things and crabs and whatever. But I was very pleasantly surprised. I didn't even know it was a beat 'em up when I started playing. I thought it was more of a just traditional-ish fighting game. But when I found out it was a beat 'em up, I'm like, oh, interesting. And then I was like, haha, this is good. And that is where I'll leave this here episode. Anyway, that will do it for this here episode of First. Once again, I am Marcus Nez. Y'all can find me on Twitter and pretty much everywhere at PX Sausage. If you'd like to see me streaming games like Dawn of the Monsters, you can do so over at twitch.tv/PX Sausage. If you'd like to check out the videos I make and you aren't already doing so, you can do that over at youtube.com/Pixelated Sausage. Speaking of Pixelated Sausage, you first stay on YouTube for a second, people. If you are there right now and you haven't done any of these things, like, subscribe, hit that bell. But speaking of Pixelated Sausage, if you put a little dot in the comment after that, what do you got? You got my website, pixelatedsausage.com, where you can go for more stuff like this, as well as the art I make. And if you see something you like art-wise, you can purchase a print of the piece you fancy. And if you fancy the site in general and anything that we do, please go over to patreon.com/PXS and support us that way. As always, thank you for watching or listening. I hope you enjoyed this here episode, and I hope you have a wonderful, wonderful rest of your day. Bye!
Well done. There aren't any Nephilim left nearby.